soon as I move, cars move. You know, I've been thinking a lot about gang-stalking over the past 3 days. And some pretty awesome ideas came to my mind. Now, I've talked some in the past about gang-stalking by proxy, meaning indirect gang-stalking, in addition to direct gang-stalking. Now, I am being directly gang-stalked, but I'm also being indirectly gang-stalked. What that means is, direct gang-stalking is when a unit, be it law enforcement or semi-law enforcement, has your name, social, date of birth, driver's license number, knows your height, weight, eye color, hair color, and other information that was a synchronized space crowding. This is a male. I guess it wasn't a male, that was a female. But when I'm walking and people ride up behind me on bikes, tinkling that little bell, it's generally a male that does it. That is the first time I've ever experienced that, and it was a female. So, I don't know, I guess women ride around with those bell bikes as well. Anyhow, back to what I was talking about previously. And that's synchronized space crowding, by the way. She just happened to be driving down the sidewalk as I'm walking in the midst of all this chaos. Anyhow, the direct gang stalking is when law enforcement or semi-law enforcement has my... Now, not only law enforcement and semi-law enforcement, but law enforcement, semi-law enforcement, and community police groups, which are not cops or semi-law enforcement at all, but just groups of quote-unquote concerned citizens or outreach people that follow people of interest around town. That's direct gang stalking. Indirect gang stalking is when a person does not know that they're stalking you, but their presence is used to stalk you. For example, let's say a private security firm, which can be classified as semi-law enforcement, wants to stalk a person, and they know that you go to the library often to maintain your social media pages, to maintain your business. What they'll do is they'll send somebody after you. So take me, for example. I'm 6'5", about 230 pounds. I have an athletic build. I have black hair. It's styled in an afro. I have a mustache, a goatee, brown eyes, and I'm medium complexion. African American male. Generally wears dark clothing. Doesn't wear jewelry, no tattoos, no glasses, no earrings, no body piercings, generally on foot, rides the metro bus from time to time, etc. Anyhow, if I were to go to a library and a private security firm were to try and stalk me indirectly, what they could do is they could send in units of gang stalkers into the library with these instructions. I want you to get as close as you can physically to a male in the library that looks like an athlete. Now, given the clientele, check this out, y'all. Right as I get to the curb, this little curve here, going left towards my destination, there's a vehicle coming just as I get there, right at the same time. How about that, folks? Anyhow, let's stick to what I was saying before. So, I'm, as I just described myself, if you were to see me walking down the street or in a mall or in a restaurant or in any retail store, or in a library, whether I'm sitting or standing, if you were to see me, you would think to yourself, oh, that looks like an athlete. Or, oh, that looks like somebody that might have played sports, organized sports, organized sanctioned athletics. And you'd be right. I played sports throughout my childhood. And now think of it. If units of gang stalkers are mobilized to go into the library and are instructed by either law enforcement or semi-law enforcement groups, which they obviously trust, as most Americans would. I mean, if a semi or law enforcement, if a law enforcement or semi-law enforcement were to tell most Americans to go and walk off the Grand Canyon, they do it. I mean, it's unfortunate, but Americans just seem to have this blind sense of obedience to military and law enforcement officials. It's the opposite with politicians, though. Americans are naturally skeptical of politicians, but military officials, generals, admirals, that kind of thing, police sergeants, even police officers, I mean, they could tell you to do anything. Just about, and I'm talking about the majority of heartland Americans and so forth. Southerners and so forth. I imagine the attitude's a little different towards the law enforcement and military community on the East Coast, on the West Coast, and in any Democratic state, because Democrats in Democratic states, especially in coastal areas, have more of a liberal ideology concerning law enforcement and the military that doesn't match up with heartland Americans and Southern Americans' idea of law enforcement and their role in society. Southerners, namely Bible Belt Americans and heartland Americans, which is just the center of America, that geographical region, have a God and country mentality and have what some would call a flag waving mentality, uber patriotism, blind loyalty to a country, right, wrong, or anything, you know? So some of these types would do anything that's told them. So if a person, and we're in Florida too, now mind you, Florida is it can be fairly summed up as a Republican state. It's a red state. South Florida is blue, but the majority of Florida is red. And there's a different kind of flag waving that goes on down here. It's not exactly the kind of flag waving that goes on in Georgia or Mississippi or Alabama or Tennessee, or even the kind of flag waving that goes on in Oklahoma or Kansas, Nebraska. Flag waving that goes on down here is a little wild. It's a different sort. Okay, it's a vigilante flag waving. And Florida is a bit weird when it comes to race relations, and I'll find time to talk about that in another video. But down here, if a police officer or any sheriff's deputy or any kind of private security firm asks a person to do something, they'll do it blindly and without question. And if they were to tell people in units to go to a library and get as close physically as you can to someone that looks like an athlete, they'll do it without asking questions, even though it's obviously an obstruction of that person's personal space and a violation of that person's civil liberties, really. But anyhow, that's indirect gang stalking. You tell people to harass a person that looks like something. You don't say their name. You don't say where they're from. You don't say where they live. You don't say anything about what you think that person's moral character is. You just tell people, hey, when you go to that library, I want you to get as close physically as you can without touching anyone that looks like an athlete. So if there is more than one person in the library that looks like an athlete, then a few people might get swarmed. But you, the target, will definitely get swarmed, and that's what they're after. They could care less about the other people who get swarmed, just as long as you, the target, get swarmed. Now, let's say that the target is a very skinny bookworm that wears glasses and walks around wearing tweed shirts or tweed sweaters and khakis and looks like the stereotypical nerd. Then the command would be very different. Okay, we just seen two service vehicles. One's going, let's see, PGA. Okay, one was going west, one was going east. The bus was going west and the trolley and the connector was going east. It's difficult to see in this with this view, but that's the way it happens. So with indirect, you know, and I'm going to get those punks on camera every time, especially the ones that have the tailpipes off to the side, because all they're doing is blowing exhaust fumes in my face. A lot of those pickup trucks and quite a few of the white vans that turn those corners right as I'm getting to the sidewalk, they have exhaust pipes that are in an L shape but out to the side, to where the exhaust fumes will blow directly at whoever is on the side of that vehicle as opposed to the back. Most vehicles have the exhaust pipes protruding out of the back of the vehicle. But a lot of these new pickup trucks and a lot of these white vans, 8-passenger vans, 10-passenger vans, they have the exhaust pipes on the side of the vehicle, and the pipes are protruding out of the side of the vehicle as opposed to protruding out of the back of the vehicle. And when they turn that corner like that, that exhaust pipe is aimed right at whoever is on the corner, and it blows exhaust fumes right in your face. And that's the kind of chumpish, the kind of chumpish, punk, sleazy, weaselly, cowardly garbage that these gang stalkers like to pull. They like to do stuff like that to people while they're on foot and your stalkers are riding around in 2-ton automobiles. And after they pull that crap, then they drive off into the night and you never see or hear from those punks again. That's the kind of trash they pull out here. Check out some of my Bal Harbor, Florida gang stalking in action videos. The ones that are set at the Starbucks in Bal Harbor. You'll see some of the stuff those punks do with the exhaust fumes out in those videos. And then they drive off into the night. It's just punk stuff. Anyhow, 7 minutes of recording time left. I'm almost to the downtown shopping plaza, where I'll likely rest and maintain my social media further. So let's say a bookwormish type is the target, and law enforcement or semi-law enforcement elements wanted to target him and crowd his space. They could say something to people like, they could dispatch units of stalkers at him and say stuff like, okay, we want you guys to get as physically close to, but without touching, anyone in that library that looks like a bookworm. That's indirect stalking. They're not telling them what the kid's name is. They're not telling them where he's from. They're not telling them what they think his moral character is. They're not telling them anything. They're just simply saying, do this to a person that looks like they might fit this description. And that's it. Somebody might act like they're looking at a book. Somebody might act as if they're dropped a pencil. Somebody might act as if they want to sit near the kid and then get up and leave. All they're doing is fulfilling their assignments. They're getting as close to the kid as possible and walking away. It's really, it's criminally annoying psychological abuse and crowd and space crowding that's going on here. And it's a shame that stuff like this is facilitated in the United States, and it has to be legislated away, because this has obviously got roots in Department of Homeland Security, DEA, ATF, U.S. Marshal, local sheriff department, local private security firm, bail bondsmen, mind games. The kinds of mind games they play with fugitives. A person can just be thrust into one of these gang stalking campaigns on a whim. All you have to do is make the wrong enemy or fit a number of other criteria that they use to find people fit to be put in a gang stalking campaign right here in America. I'm telling you this right now. I don't ever want anybody to approach me or come to me and say that America is the land of the free or the home of the brave, because it is not. Stuff like gang stalking makes me want to go all the way back to the founding of America, where pilgrims came over here and basically scalped all the Indians, gave them syphilis, and basically exterminated that group then used African slaves as free laborers, beat and killed a lot of them. Then after the Africans were free, then we started seeing Jim Crow years later, institutional racism, police brutality, the denial of civil rights to blacks. Okay, then you started seeing programs like COINTELPRO and MK Ultra. Then you started seeing various governmental racist policies go into place. The failure to fund black schools and stuff, black public schools and stuff like that. Basically ensuring from the time a black kid goes to school that he's going to fail in life. Then you started seeing the unjust incarceration of blacks. And I think even today, 7% of the population, which is black males, make up 60% of the prison population. That's a program, ladies and gentlemen. You know why it's a program? Because there are a lot of private prisons in this country that benefit daily based on the number of prisoners. You got black men that are being overcharged for crimes. They're getting hit with trumped up charges, so they'll get maximum sentences in these private prisons that get something like $200 a day per inmate, courtesy of the taxpayer. You got that long line of history against black males. Now you got them in gang stalking. Don't talk to me about freedom in this country. Just get these punks off me. That's all I'm saying. And if you don't do it, I'm going to do it. How am I going to do it? I'm going to keep recording them. If I don't have the constitutional right to be free of this foolishness, I'm going to videotape myself out of it. And I know I'm being listened to right now. I know I'm being surveilled right now. I know I'm being bugged right now. Well, if you're bugging me, if you're watching me, let me talk to you. I think you're a sniveling coward. I think you're a waste of taxpayer money. I think you need to spend more time at home with your wives and your kids. A lot of you talk about how bad black